I would try to, with my hands, especially my left hand, because my left side was paralyzed, like I said before. So I would try, I remember doing an OT therapy. I don't know where it was at, but
it was at Penn State.
Penn State Hershey. So I was working with a therapist, and my hand would be clenched. So I had a hard time of opening it up. And there are a lot of stories I can tell you about opening it up. But alongside of this story, whenever the goal was, she had a basket, and I had to grab a ball out of the basket with my left hand while I was standing. I had to grab the ball out of the basket with my left hand, and then I had to pull it up, and then I had to let go. Okay. So I had to bring it over to a basket, put it back in the basket, and let go of it. So there's multiple times when I would be telling my hand to let the ball go, but it wouldn't let it go. So it was very frustrating.
Welcome back to the Lead Lamp Podcast. This week, we have a very special, not that all of our guests aren't special, but we have very special guests on, Lisa Lithgow and Jackie Lithgow from the Jackie Lithgow Foundation. And I have been excited ever since you told Kara that you'd come on the show, because we have a good history together. I used to be a colleague of Jackie's, colleague of Lisa's. I didn't work with Jackie. But it was great to catch up. We did plenty of talking before we even got on the podcast. So thanks for coming on. I'm very familiar with, the Lithgow Foundation and your story, but kind of give people in the Central PA area that maybe aren't familiar with the foundation just a brief overview of the foundation, like what it's about and what you help, accomplish.
Yeah. So I'll start. So the foundation, the idea started after I got injured and was recovering. I got a lot of support from family and local loved ones and just local residents to where we lived and all that stuff. So, I got a lot of support that way. And with that support, I felt like I needed to give back. I wanted to keep that support going. So with that, once I got better and everything, then I talked to my parents about creating a foundation, and we called the foundation the Jackie Lithgow Foundation. And with that, we help local traumatic brain injury survivors and their road to recovery. So with that, we have, I don't know how deep we're going to get into it now, but
go anywhere. This is okay. From here on, we can go in any direction. Okay. But I have one thing real quick.
Yes. Yeah.
This started as your idea. Like you wanted to give back.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay. I don't think I knew that before. Yeah. Like that started as your own brainchild. Like let's make it something else.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I wanted to, like I said before, I wanted to keep, I got so much love and support and through going through what I did that I wanted to keep that going on, and I didn't want, that to end. And not that it would end, but I didn't want that to end and stop.
Yeah. And I think you wanted other survivors to kind of feel what you felt, like supported, where there's some that don't have maybe the support that Jackie had.
Like they don't all have a network. Like you guys were fortunate because it seemed like, we know you well, like you guys had a really strong network that came together to help Jackie. Yeah. But I'm sure there's plenty of people that have TBIs that are just kind of left on their own. Yeah. And they get some support while they're in the hospital, but there's a limit to what's there. And you kind of saw that as a need, like, no, you need to provide more than that.
Exactly. Yeah. And our mission, Jackie mentioned it, is to support TBI survivors, so traumatic brain injury survivors on their road to recovery. And so that looks like financially, educationally, emotional support, and then also research and development. So we're partnering with a health organization we can tell you about later where we're doing some of that work, which is really cool.
Okay. And then do you do any support as far as helping them with any kind of the therapies too, like either reaching out and getting them help they need as far as different physical therapies or finding other routes for them to go if they've kind of exhausted an option where they're at now?
Yeah, so we've with Jackie's recovery, so he had the typical recovery, which the TBI survivors get usually in the hospital or in rehabs after their hospital stay. So physical therapy, occupational therapy, recreational therapy, and speech therapy. So those are the main ones that typically your medical insurance will cover if you have medical insurance. And then we wanted to think out of the box. Jackie's neurosurgeon said, listen, throw everything you can at Jackie because it's just going to help him get better and better and better. So that's when we researched other therapies. So Jackie did aqua therapy, which was amazing. So the Hedrick Center in Middletown is where we did that. So initially when he started, he wasn't walking yet. And they got him in the wheelchair, a stainless steel wheelchair, and then lowered him into the pool. And then they got him into the pool. And at first they had parallel bars in the pool just so he could get used to just standing in there. And then it advanced to where 2 therapists were in the pool with you. I think you remember, Jackie. And the one therapist advanced his left leg forward because his left side wasn't moving yet.
Okay.
And so we found that therapy to be amazing. And Jackie, I know you might want to give your comments on it and how you felt about it. But then other therapies, we tried equestrian therapy for Jackie. So that's CATRA, Capital Area Therapeutic Riding Association, is in the Harrisburg area. They help many individuals with disabilities, and equestrian therapy is a cool thing to do. Jackie went for a session of that. Vision therapy.
Those are all ones where you, like you said, you're not being recommended to go to do them through your healthcare network. Like
no.
These are things that you knew would benefit Jackie or anyone with a TBI, like they're kind of out of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where like we can help if we talk to families who are going through it. We can kind of give some suggestions on what we did and what really helped Jackie, and then they can certainly decide if they want to try it out or not. So do you want to say anything about aqua therapy, Jackie?
Yeah. So I remember when I was in aqua therapy at the beginning, as my mom mentioned, they would wheel me in and then they'd help me stand up with the parallel bars. And then the one therapist would move my left leg because my left side was, with the injury, was basically all paralyzed, we could say. And so he would move my left leg for me, and then I got into the regular rhythm of, regular gait walking. I mean, it took a little bit, but I got in the rhythm of that. And then I actually started walking on my own. They let me go, and I walked on my own with the parallel bars, and then obviously without them. And then at the end, I remember at the end, well, I'll start there. So at the beginning, after I started walking regularly, I remember, telling my parents, I really, this feels like I could walk again. I mean, this was before I was walking on regular land, right? So I felt like I actually was walking again for the first time, which was pretty insane to think about. But yeah, that was pretty cool. And
it was probably a bigger confidence boost too, because you're like, all right, I'm moving.
Right.
This
and
is
it was
good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, okay, I got, because I knew, through my recovery, I knew that I'd always get to the end point, right, of walking again. But I never knew how it would feel, right? Because I don't remember being a baby, right? And I don't remember when I first learned to walk. So I was just like, okay, this must be what it feels like. But obviously I'm older. So that was a cool feeling to feel that. And then I remember, I didn't really stumble, but I remember, it was like a baby learning to walk again. I mean, they stumble and all that stuff. And that didn't happen with me. But I do remember, I mean, there was learning curves and stuff like that. But back to the point, so with aqua therapy, I did tell my parents that I felt like I was walking again for the first time and felt like I could walk again. And then after that, then I started to get my regular gait in the water that you would have whenever you're walking. So that was good. And then I remember at the last session, they let me run. And that was the first time I actually ran post-injury. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and the therapist there, like great thing about aqua therapy, especially for traumatic brain injuries, you don't want to fall again, right? You don't ever want to hit your head again. So in the water, guess what? If you fall, you're just falling into water.
It's like getting dunked.
It's like getting dunked. Yeah. So aqua therapy has a lot of benefits for other injuries too, but for traumatic brain injuries, we found it was like one of the therapies that just really made him go upwards. So
yeah. Now, kind of a little bit of an offshoot from this, like I just thought about this while Jackie was talking, and what was the process like? Like I never thought about it that way, where you're like, you know, a baby learns, like when you have a child, they learn how to do all these things over again. But, you know, I never thought about it that way, where you're like, well, my kids don't remember learning to talk or walk or do any of those things. But like, you knowing that you need to do these things, but you got to figure out how to do that again. Like, what was that learning process like, knowing this is what happened to me and now we got to kind of start from square one again? There's got to be some excitement to getting back to that again, because you know, like, if I work at it, it's coming. But there also has to be some moments where you're like, man, this is, I just got to get it. But kind of, if you don't mind walking us through like learning to redo those things and like the excitement of like, oh man, I got this again. Because I think we take for granted that we just know, like, well, I'm just going to walk to my car now. Like, we take it for granted, but relearning it has to be a pretty emotion filled thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember, so I'll start with, so I was in the hospital. Obviously I had a trach in, and all that stuff. So I know talking was hard, obviously, but I had to relearn. So when I was in college, it was for my speech class, and I did.
This is when you went back to college.
Yes, went back to college, and then I was in a speech class, and I did a speech entitled "Growing Up Twice," it was good, but that really helped me go through that stuff again. I don't remember a whole lot of learning how to speak again. I mean, I do remember, I would try to speak, not so much speaking. I don't remember too much of that, but I would try to, with my hands, especially my left hand, because my left side was paralyzed, like I said before. So I would try, I remember doing an OT therapy. I don't know where it was at, but
it was at Penn State.
Penn State Hershey. So I was working with a therapist, and my hand would be clenched. So I had a hard time of opening it up. And there are a lot of stories I can tell you about opening it up. But alongside of this story, whenever the goal was, she had a basket, and I had to grab a ball out of the basket with my left hand while I was standing. I had to grab the ball out of the basket with my left hand, and then I had to pull it up, and then I had to let go. Okay. So I had to bring it over to a basket, put it back in the basket, and let go of it. So there's multiple times when I would be telling my hand to let the ball go, but it wouldn't let it go. So it was very frustrating at certain times, like you mentioned, that it was frustrating because my brain was telling my body to do something, but the connections just weren't there, or they weren't reworked, or whatever it may have been. But I was telling it to do something, but it wasn't listening to me. So I had that multiple times with different things, like my leg. I would tell my leg to move, but it wouldn't move, and so on.
And it's amazing that it's kind of a testament to the human body, where you're like, you're able to completely reconnect that connection. Like there is a pathway to be able to do all emotions we do, whether you think about them or you don't. And it's like, it's able to reconnect that. It might take a little bit of time and persistence, but like, you're able to reconnect it. And it's interesting, like I said, to see the resilience of being able to do that again after, such a traumatic thing.
Yeah. And even though, Jackie had a severe traumatic brain injury, so it's called a diffuse axonal injury, which means that there's just damage throughout the brain. And so if some of those pathways, the neural pathways you're talking about, just couldn't reconnect, the brain finds a way to reconnect.
It'll make new
pathways to do it. Right. Yeah. So that was all part of it. And that was, I think, the hardest thing for you, Jackie, was just sitting there and being so frustrated because his brain was well enough now to figure out what he had to do. It's just that the pathways just weren't talking yet.
I feel like this is such a dumb visualization of it. But yeah. I think of like a guy that's tunneling. Like I don't know. Yeah. This is a terrible visualization. But I think of like a guy, he's got like a pickaxe, and he they know there's gold, but you got to dig that new tunnel wherever.
Yeah.
Like Dig Dug. You remember the old video game Dig Dug? Does anyone know Dig Dug?
No.
Like he's
Did you? No.
digging into like find the treasure, but you had to, like your brain and your body had to reconnect all that. So you're making new tunnels basically to find that goal, which was the movement again.
Yeah.
That's a terrible visualization.
No.
But it made sense for me.
Yeah. But that's a thing with traumatic brain injuries.
Yeah.
You have to give them time.
And there's probably, and you guys have been working with the foundation now for a while.
Yeah.
There's probably not one, it's not like a silver bullet. Like how you did it is not the same as how somebody else is currently going through their recovery, because even though traumatic brain injuries is kind of lumped into a category, how it happened, the recovery, the length of time, all of those things are so different from every single traumatic brain injury that everyone's recovery is probably wildly different. And you probably see that now with just working within that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like we've been able to work with some different families. So some of Jackie's caregivers, whether at Geisinger, whether at McGee Rehab in Philly, even at Hershey, so they might reach out and say, hey, we have a family with a young individual. Jackie was injured when he was 19. So if there's someone comes in with a severe TBI, they'll say, if you don't mind, would you mind reaching out to the family? And so we know initially for us, we just needed time before we talked to anybody else, and timing is really different too. So yeah, when the family's ready, then we can talk to them. But yeah, so even though the injuries might be similar, the path to recovery is so different for every single one of them. When Jackie was in rehab, the doctor would come in and he'd say, okay, I know this is going on. We're going to try this medicine. And we'd be like, well, what do you mean you're going to try this medicine? And he's like, with traumatic brain injuries, everyone's different. We don't know. We have to try. With unlike some types of cancers where now they know exactly what chemotherapy targets it.
Yeah, it's very precise.
Yeah, for traumatic brain injury, that's not the case.
Huh.
Yeah.
And it's probably not even just your body, but your mentality on things or your drive to get, because a lot of it, is probably persistence with it too. You just got to keep coming back to it and figuring it out. And eventually you'll find out that thing, but it's not like you said, it's not like a known disease where we can target it with this medicine or we can target it with this type of radiation, because there's more unknowns with it. It's from what I've learned from you guys, it's kind of like that onion, but you don't know what's under each layer. You just,
right.
Well, we're going to figure it out.
Yeah. And each stage of a TBI recovery is tough, right? So the severe stage at the very beginning, you're hoping your loved one makes it to the next day. If it's that severe. And then you get through that point and then you're just in rehab. And then, you're not even really doing much physical therapy or anything like that. There's other things that can happen. Muscle spasms happen all the time. Seizures can come up. There's just a lot of complications that can happen. And you talk about injuries being different. So everybody's TBI recovery journey has different complications that happen and come up too. So it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's neat to hear. I'm going to come back to what you said in the beginning after I asked that question the first time. It's neat to hear how you said it's great that they reach out to you for help, but you also need to know, or you also know there's that cool down period for the families where you're like, well, they might not be ready because you went through that too. So it's cool when you are able to reach out to a family, whether it's Jackie or if maybe it's the parents that are looking for guidance too. Because as much as you offer help for people who are in recovery, I'm sure your parents are also able to help from time to time where it's like, okay, well, I need to talk to mom because we went through this as parents too, and this is kind of the journey. So the foundation's probably set up nicely because all of you, your whole family was involved and it seemed they're still involved in the foundation. So it's cool that you can offer help from any angle, basically.
Yeah.
For a family member going through, whether it's a relative or themselves going through a TBI.
Yeah,
recovery.
exactly. Yeah. What's really cool for Jim and I to see is when, say, McGee calls us or another institution calls us. So we went down to McGee and there was a young man there around Jackie's age, because now Jackie's 11-year post-injury, which is amazing. But he goes in to visit these young individuals that are around 19, 20, and they're laying there. They're not walking yet. They have trachs in still probably. And he walks in and they see his trach scar and he shows them the scar from his stomach peg tubes and he shows them other scars. And he says, yeah, and I still have a shunt. And I think those patients look at him and think, oh my gosh, like, I think I can do this. Like, I really think I can do it. If he did it, then I think I can do it. And that's such a cool thing for us to witness.
One, I mean, I want to hear what you have to say too, because like you are in both sides of it too. So like when it's interesting to me that, you know, you're so involved in it now because like your mom said, when you go in to visit some of these people who are kind of near the beginning of that recovery and you know what they've gone through. So in their heads, they're thinking this is going to take forever. And, you know, it is a long process, but at the other side of it, it's been 11 years already. And you're like, it really was quick. I mean, didn't feel like that at times, I'm sure, but like it's always like that with anything in life. Like on the other side of it seems faster when you are on the other and you're like, dang, it's been over a decade already. So when you go in, it's A, rewarding to see them light up, kind of like, all right, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And B, knowing that you can tell them like, listen, we got this. You just have to listen to your doctors and your therapy teams.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do like, to go in and talk to, because like we said before, every traumatic brain injury is different.
Right.
But so like someone may not have everything I had to go through, or may have different things than what I had to go through, whether it's, they have less hearing or less smell or whatever it may be. Right. But I just try and help them with what I have experienced, and I can give them tips on maybe, don't get, one of my main things is don't get frustrated with yourself.
Right.
Because it'll come, right? It'll come to you eventually. I mean, it's not going to happen all in 1 second. Like you said, you got to be patient. So that's something that I definitely, like to tell people, like, okay, you may not see the end of the tunnel, right, at this point, but there is an end of the tunnel.
It's there.
It's there, and there are different ways to get there. So I think, that's something that I like to tell people. And also, just to let them know that, you're whoever's with them, right, that you have support, and I know that's key, that support, and, never to feel lonely or like don't give up on yourself.
Yeah.
Because I know there are probably going to be bad days ahead of you. There are going to be good days ahead of you, but there's also going to be a lot of bad days and a lot of good days, but a lot of bad days. And so you just need to keep your head up, right? And you just need to, stay resilient and stay strong and, be able to make it through the hard times to get to the good times.
Yeah. So other than offering, obviously, that's more like physical in-person support, advice, kind of a shoulder to lean on or someone to talk to. You guys offer that through the foundation. But in addition to that, you had said you do some other types of support for families or individuals going through traumatic brain injury recovery. Some of it, like you said, was financial. You guys offer support as far as resources as well.
Yeah.
But what are some other things that you guys have going on with the foundation right now that you're excited about? Or, I know you have your events too. Which we always go to the events, but
yeah, and thank you.
They're good. They're fun. Yeah. I did not do the 5K this year though. I apologize.
We noticed your absence.
As Joe and I were talking, I would have gotten completely dusted because there were some fast guys.
Oh, really? Okay.
But it's okay.
Times? Yeah.
I won it one year and I hung my medal up and
that's right. Yeah.
I'll come back. But anyways, So what else is happening with the foundation? So outside of like in-person support or kind of someone to talk to or interacting with the families or people that are recovering, what else is your foundation offering right now?
So we have worked on and obtained some pretty cool partnerships with some different places.
Yeah, you hinted about this earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first one that we started with was McGee. So Jackie spent 6 months of his recovery there. So
you guys were very close with the McGee team too, because you talk about, like every time we've talked with you about it, like the McGee team gets brought up quite a bit.
Yeah,
so.
and we still are. Like we still stay in touch with
They reach out to you guys? And
yeah, it's kind of vice versa. And it's really cool because when you go through it and you're in a rehab for 6 months' time, that care team becomes your second family. It's hard to explain unless you go through it. So
they probably get very personal. Like it's very personal for them too.
Yeah, yeah. So what we did was we created a fund, I guess you would say, for the neuro wing at the rehab in Philly.
Okay.
And so when traumatic brain injury patients leave, not all of them have the same level of insurance. And some of them may need assistive devices. So think of a cane, think of a walk, the cost of a walker. Think of maybe an arm brace or something like that. And so they would be discharged without that equipment because their insurance wouldn't cover for it.
Yeah.
So we fuel a fund down there, and the therapists and docs are able to pull money from that fund to buy that device for that person when they leave.
Gotcha.
So that's a way we help down there. Now, our mission is to kind of help TBI survivors. I know Jackie said local, but in the Central PA area, but we don't stop there. Like we know that there's needs otherwhere. Yeah. Exactly, right. So that's McGee. We recently partnered with Penn State Health. So their Department of PM&R, which is physical medicine and rehabilitation, they work with traumatic brain injury survivors.
Okay.
And so the research and development part of our mission, we really weren't hitting until we got the partnership with them. So we've been able to give funds to them, and they actually are doing some trials and some research and development on TBIs and how to help them, and also how to help TBIs patients get to independent living.
Okay.
So we've partnered with them. So the money helps in that area.
So that's like, and that's getting to that point, like you said, independent living, that's even like, that takes even longer than just being like at the stage where you're like graduating from PT or occupational therapy, where you're not having to be reliant on a parent or anything else, and you're moving out of the house or you're moving into that next stage of life. That takes even longer, I'm sure. So that's what they're focusing on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And yes, exactly. Like helping with that. They've got a lot of patients there between the rehab and in the hospital.
Okay. It's like an in-between stage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I'm sure they help with that. And it really depends on the severity of the traumatic brain injury, right, too. And Jackie, you mentioned, which was so good, like the support piece, right? Because when Jackie came home after 6 months of therapy, he still wasn't walking. So some people come home and they are walking. So it really all depends on the severity of the injury, if you can get home right away.
Or what was affected. Right.
Or what was, exactly what was affected. So we're excited about that. And we're going to keep partnering with them. And we're excited to see what they can do with the funds that we give them and how that can advance the treatment for traumatic brain injuries.
Gotcha.
I
was going to say, is there... I didn't want to cut you off on that, but with traumatic brain injuries, is it something that's getting more and more attention now than it had been in the past? Or is it like, I feel like a lot of brain and sport, like even with sports, a lot of health with the brain from even impacts or just attention to health with injuries that are maybe not as studied in the past, but they are now, are getting a lot more attention. It seems, is TBIs the same way, where like there's more, they're learning more, and they're like, we're not there yet where we know everything about them, but, and we might never be, but it seems like there's more attention on health post-injury to the brain than there ever was. I
think so. Do you think with football and stuff, the whole CTE thing, I think just brings neuro stuff to light, you think, Jeff?
Obviously, it doesn't compare at all to what you went through, but I do feel like there is a bigger focus on brain health when normally you wouldn't have seen it in the past, but there is now, whether it's from a TBI or a lesser injury, like it seems like it's a lot more hyper-focused now.
Yes. Yeah, I would say so. And I mean, and I think there is more, research going into it. And I think there is more, as there's more research, you're going to find out more going into it. But yeah, I think that there are a lot of stuff that's coming out now, and like brain health, is also very important.
Yeah.
And, meditation and all that stuff, helps with brain health and
your mental health and mental fitness even. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So all that, is key, especially whenever you're recovering from a brain injury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So just there's two other partnerships that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't. We did. Let's get back on track with that. Sorry.
So no, that's okay. So we also just partnered with Geisinger.
Okay.
So Geisinger Health Foundation. And Jackie initially is 6 weeks post-injury was at the Trauma One in Danville.
Okay.
And so we've stayed in contact with Dr. Barrow, who is the head of trauma there
That
over
was his
all
first,
these years.
That was the first hospital interaction you had.
Yeah.
Right after the injury.
Yeah. And she was our trauma doc there in the ICU.
And I'm sure a lot depends on that interaction. Like who you get at the moment of that traumatic event is probably almost make or break on what happens for that moment forward too.
Yeah. And let me tell you that's so true, because different doctors have different philosophies, and you can't mess around with pressure in the brain. So when you have a traumatic brain injury, there is so much swelling of the brain. And so decisions have to be made. Do we relieve that pressure with putting a bolt in? Do we relieve that pressure by taking pieces of the skull off? Like, how bad is this? Let's look at the CAT scans. And we have to make a life-saving decision. And that's really up to the doctor to decide that. So you're absolutely right.
It's not like I broke my arm and I need it reset.
No, I mean, your brain is everything.
Right. Well, and you don't, it's easy to reset a broken bone or get some stitches or whatever, but like there's a lot of things that probably domino from whatever happens in that moment when you arrive till the first 24 hours have passed with a TBI that can change so much for the rest of that person's life even versus another emergency room visit. Like it's a way different scenario. So you have to have those people trained appropriately, and the doctor you get probably makes a big difference in all the treatment afterwards too.
Yeah, and that's huge. Even so, what I would say to anybody listening is if you hit your head really hard, don't even think about it. Like, go get it checked out, right? Because that's so important. The time from when the injury to when you first get in care. We were so lucky with Jackie post his injury because the police officers were able to get there, I think within like 10 minutes. Typically, their calls, they're 45 minutes out. And the one police officer that showed up was a retired life flight medic.
Oh, wow.
He took one look at Jackie. He called the local hospital and said, we need to get the helicopter here. They life flighted Jackie just 9 miles to the Trauma One Center in Danville. So even those decisions are critical to the outcome of a TBI patient.
Yeah, and that's, unfortunately, a lot of trauma centers probably aren't set up to handle that right away too. So it's probably like time and place for a lot of TBIs because, if you're more remote, like it's just, unfortunately, it's just time and place with those things too. So, and getting, like you said, getting the right trauma center, knowing who, even on the paramedic or emergency responder level, like who to send where, like triaging is a huge part of it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So the one other partnership we have is with Geisinger. And so when that first happens, they get a lot of motor vehicle accidents that come to their trauma ICU.
Is that the one right up off of 15 North when you're heading?
Yeah. It's very close to Bloomsburg, not that far from Bloomsburg.
Yeah.
And so fortunate that Jackie was that close to a Trauma One hospital when he was injured, to your point. But the first days of a severe traumatic brain injury are really, really critical, like we talked about before. So the family, they don't want to leave. Like, they don't want to leave the hospital. They want to be with them. They can't really sleep in the hospital. So we just created a fund under the foundation and Jackie's name there. So the trauma docs there for the severe traumatic brain injuries that come into the ICU, they're able to pull from that fund and then house those families for the first night or two until they can kind of get a hold of other family and get some other support in. So that's how we're helping as well. So
they get a more comfortable place to stay than emergency room.
Well, it's funny because we kind of camped out in the in the waiting room for a while, and then they were so sweet about it. They're like, we know you want to be this close to Jackie, but we just can't have you sleeping in the waiting room anymore. So, so we thought hopefully that's a way, to Jackie's point, to provide the same support we had to other folks to help them get a place to stay. So, yeah. Well,
and that's like, it's just something you don't think about, until you're in that situation. And now, like a decade past, you're like, you know what? Well, we were in the emergency room or we're waiting in the trauma center, like we're sleeping on these waiting rooms chairs. Like there's got to be a more comfortable way to, the family might not be sleeping very well, but at least we can get them comfortable by helping them get whatever they need.
Yeah.
Versus like, uncomfortably contorted in those awful hospital chairs.
Right.
So like, it's just little things like that when you're going through now that you can kind of reflect on it all, like, hey, I went through this when I was in my recovery. Like maybe there's a way with Foundation that we can reach out to these entities I went through to make that process better for the people that are actually going through the recovery process too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think, going through what I went through, with all the recoveries with all the therapies I tried and all that stuff. I think that all, I'm glad that I did all that, and I'm also glad because we know much more than some other people do. Like if they're just going through this the first time, they will be like a deer in headlights, right? They won't. And so we try and give them not as much, we don't try and overload them with advice, right? But we want to give them as the least amount that they need. And then they'll be like, oh, well, maybe we need to know more or whatever. And then we will tell them more. So we have, right, like I think we have a lot of knowledge because we've been through it, but we are willing to share that knowledge.
You don't want to flood them.
Right.
But you want to guide them.
Right.
Well, I do want to flood them. And Jackie and Jim says, okay, put on
Lisa,
the brakes.
we need to back off a little.
Let's not turn the fire hose off and let's just let it, to Jackie's point. Yeah.
The way you explain it, it's great. Like you want to kind of give them some crumbs.
Yeah.
And then have them kind of lead themselves to the next question.
Yeah.
And then when they're ready to reach out for like, hey, what do we do about this? And then like, hey, we know it. Or I'm sure you even have maybe you've been in situations too where you're like, I don't know, but I know other people that have been through it too. Cause there's probably, you have a network now. Mm-hmm. There's probably like, hey, this person also can answer that question. So maybe we should reach out to them. So it's not even Jackie or Lisa or Jim reaching out to them. It's like, hey, we know someone that can help with that. So let's get you in touch with them too. Like you have a network, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's helped too, staying in contact with all of Jackie's care teams from the different health organizations, because that's exactly what we can do if we're just not sure of something.
Yeah, that's your resource part of it that you were saying.
Yeah. Another partnership that we just are doing now is with an organization called Help Hope Live.
Okay.
So that organization is
Hope Lift.
Help
okay.
Live. Help
Live.
Hope Live.
Gotcha. I thought you said lift at the end.
No, Live. Help Hope Live. Right.
Okay.
So it's a national nonprofit, and they actually help individuals that have had catastrophic injuries. So think about a TBI, or individuals that need organ transplants.
Okay.
And they just know that the medical bills are going to be intense. So they help individuals set up campaigns, fundraising campaigns on their website, and show them how they can send out the links to friends and family to raise money to help them with these costs.
Gotcha.
So we're partnering with them because what we can do is either they come to us, or somehow if we identify anyone that might have a need, a financial need, we can put them in touch with Help Hope Live. So they are educated how they can start raising funds on their own. And then if we'd happen to have available funds for them, we might be able to give a grant to their campaign.
Gotcha.
So that they can pull from that. So,
and that's not just TBIs. That's anything like any traumatic, like you said, catastrophic injuries or organ transplants.
Yes, that's what Help Hope Live does. No, the grants that we would provide would go directly to traumatic brain injuries, but they help, if you would go on their website, you can see who all they help.
Gotcha.
And that's pretty exciting. We've been able to go to a bunch of conferences and have tables there. So we've been with the Brain Injury Association. We work with the Brain Injury Association of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And they have a national conference that's in Lancaster every year. And we've been able to also provide scholarships to traumatic brain injury survivors to attend the conference. And then we got to meet them and have lunch with them. So that was pretty cool too. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go back into not how the foundation is supporting, but some like cool stories. So like through this process, you've probably met, I know you've met, because I've heard a couple of stories too, but like you've met a lot of really just great people, inspirational things along the way, I'm sure too. What was probably like through your recovery process, or even through starting and working in the foundation now, like what's like the most, looking back at it, like, oh man, that was awesome. Like, there were plenty of things that probably weren't awesome, but looking back at that whole, journey, there's got to be a couple of things that you're like, man, that was really cool. Like, I'm glad I got to experience that. Yeah,
I would say when I was at McGee, I'm a Philadelphia fan. Born and raised, whether I like it or not.
You didn't have a choice.
No, I didn't have a choice. So from birth, all Philly teams. Whenever I was at McGee, there was an old Flyer who was a part, he was like
an ambassador, maybe?
Like ambassador for the Flyers who would come to McGee. And his name's Todd Fedoruk, the Fridge, nicknamed the Fridge. So he came up and he got wind that I liked the Flyers. And so I was in my wheelchair still, and he came up and I met him. I haven't seen him play because he was a player back in the day, and I never had seen him. And I've heard of him every once in a while, but I haven't seen him play. But I knew who he was. So he came up and he said, "So I heard you like the Flyers," and I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Okay." So then he worked with my PT team, my PT therapist, and what happened was we ended up getting to go to Voorhees, which is where the Flyers practice. And I remember we were able to go from McGee, and we used it as therapy because whenever we were able to go, because we said that it was therapy, which it was. And, we went to the rink, and my OT therapist pulled me up to the rink side, and she stood me up out of my chair, and to help stand me up, that was, my first time, I can say probably first time that I stood up assisted, right? But stood up. And then, so that was interesting. And then after that, through that, I know this is a long story. So through that, then I met Wayne Simmons, who, was a big, I would say, I understand that, athletes are just people, right? And they have families and all that stuff. And, but there's people that are good at sports, right?
Right.
So, I idolize them, but to a certain degree, because I know they're people. And they also bleed and all that stuff. So anyway.
Yeah, everyone puts their pants on.
Right. Yeah. So they're human like you. And, so I remember, meeting him for the first time. That was very cool. And then, so I'd say that was probably one of my first, interactions with someone who played a professional sport. So that was very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was neat was we got to know the PR director who's not there now. And then we're able to keep going back to see games and then go into the locker room. And so for the Flyers that were there and hadn't been traded yet, who saw Jackie the first time, were kind of blown away each time we got back to see his recovery. And the one time we went back to a practice, we were walking back into the locker room. We passed Wayne Simmons. And we're like, "Hi." And he took a double take and he's like, "Jackie, is that you?" So that was so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's neat too, because like you said, they're just people. They're not any better at life than we are. They're just on TV, everyone idolizes them because they're playing their favorite sport. But at the end of the day, like, they have their own things going on, and it's cool that like, oh, they recognized me. But like, they're just good at what they do. That's all they're good. That's the only reason that they're like who they are.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you probably got to see the human side of them too, which was like,
they're
just normal dudes. They just play hockey.
Yeah. And at the one game, tell them where you got to go. Remember where we got to go upstairs?
So we got to go up to to the telecast room.
Oh, cool. Which is a lot higher than on TV. Like you're thinking they have the TV angle, but they're like above the nosebleed seats yet. Like
it's
I don't know how they call names from up there. Yeah. But anyways,
it was Jim Jackson and
Keith Jones.
Gotcha.
So we have a picture of Jackie with those two. So that was really cool because Jackie went back to be a comm major. So that was neat.
Well, it was like a glimpse into the comm side, which is what you wanted to go back to school for.
Yeah.
Sure. So I'm sure you were geeking out about that. Like,
yeah. And I would see, when I remember, so it was my birthday. We went up.
That's when we were in the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah. We went up for my birthday, and then we met. Yeah. We had an interview with them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what, So, and then that showed on they showed that on, the station. Right. And then I had people text me like, "Hey, you're on the TV," and I was like
the Phillies, the Philly network.
Like the Phillies station, like the TSN Philly, whatever. Yeah, and that was pretty cool.
Huh?
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's next for your foundation? Like you have. It's a golf tournament in the spring that's coming up.
Yeah. So we have 2 major fundraising events a year. So the first one of the year is the golf tournament.
Yeah, golf.
So this is the 12th year for the golf tournament. So the first 2 years, Jim was the local golf coach when Jackie was injured. And Derek Snyder, who's now our board president, and a friend of his, Stephen Jumper, were 2 kids that were on the golf team. And so when Jackie was in the hospital, they actually had the very first Golf for Jackie tournament. And that was at, in local tournament at Apple. And then the second year, Jackie really had just come home. And so the second year, they had the tournament again. And that helped raise funds for us, which we put in Help Hope Live.
Okay.
Which then we were able to pull over the years for medical expenses that insurance didn't cover for us. And then the next 2 years, we as a family took over the tournament, and then the foundation was created in 2018. So since then, it's been under the Jackie Lithgow Foundation. So this year, it's May 17th. It's at Range End Golf Course in Dillsburg.
Okay.
And then the second event is always sometime in September, and that is a 5K, and it's a walk, run, roll, because we want anybody to be able to participate, whether they're in a wheelchair, whether they're in a bike, whatever. They have a stroller, we want them to be able to participate. And so those are the 2 main fundraisers we have, always looking to raise more funds, aren't we? Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I've done the golf tour. I know Kara goes to the golf tournament.
Yes.
And like Joe Search, Dr. Search goes.
Yep.
But Jim's seen me play golf, so I don't know if he probably wants me to come to the golf.
Hey, any level. Anyone can play. And we have a great silent auction. So even if you're not a golfer,
all right,
you can come check out the silent auction.
All right.
Because we have cool things there. Yeah, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bunch of good prizes.
Yes, yeah.
Now, they can find that on your website.
Yes.
Too. So we'll make sure we'll have the links for it in our description.
Yeah, sounds good.
But other than that, other than the events and the golf tournament and 5K, how can somebody else support the Lithgow Foundation, or how can people support just in general anyone that's going through recovery from a TBI?
I mean, there's a bunch of ways. So for our foundation specifically, certainly donations are graciously accepted and really appreciated. You can do that. So it's lithgowfoundation.org. I know it'll put the link. But there's a donate button on our page. They can certainly play in any of the events, walk in any of the events, donate to the events, be a sponsor, or even volunteer at any of our events. If anyone's interested, they can reach out and we can see if we have any volunteer spots available for that. As far as help for everyone else with a TBI, the Brain Injury Association of PA has really wonderful resources on their website.
Okay. I should have asked that question. Not just how can they support, but if there's ever anyone that stumbles upon this video because they're researching TBI information, like sorry, Cody, I'm bumping the mic. What's a good way for people to either A, support, or B, find resources for people who are recovering from a TBI or maybe are recently kind of going through that?
So I would go to the Brain Injury Association in your particular state.
Okay.
So for us, it's the Brain Injury Association PA. They actually have a resource line for traumatic brain injuries. They can call the phone number, they can leave a message, and someone will get back to them and offer help.
Okay.
They have a caregiver support program as well. They have educational resources on the site. One thing that's really important, and we've been able to help defray costs for some other retreats for TBI survivors, there's a national nonprofit called Love Your Brain. And so that's a really cool organization. So Kevin Pierce was a snowboarder, and he was competing against Shaun White for the Olympics. And so a month before the Vancouver Olympics, Winter Olympics, he crashed on the half pipe and has severe traumatic brain injury and was never able to go back and compete again. So him and his brother Andrew created Love Your Brain Foundation, and that's a national foundation. They have their own retreats, which is really cool.
So do like is that like they do getaways?
They do. Yeah.
So they do trips?
They do trips.
Yeah.
They also had a van, and they were going around and just having people come on their van and meditate. They do have a meditation library, which I even use, and I know Jackie uses it all the time, don't you, Jackie?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But they have a meditation library that anybody can go on their site.
Okay.
And you sign up and you can go in and get
That's
meditation.
not even for injuries. That's
for anybody.
Any kind of meditation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Jackie's laughing. So that's a good resource.
Yeah, I do it every day.
I have an alarm that goes off that reminds me I have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's organizations like that where they can get help. And what we found is talking to people that have gone to these retreats, whether they're local or whether they're through Love Your Brain, the traumatic brain injury survivors, and Jackie, I don't know how you felt because we were like glued to you all the time, so maybe you didn't feel this way, but when they can talk to another TBI survivor, they actually felt like a real person again. Because you would look at Jackie, and if you didn't see his trach scar, you would think that he didn't go through any traumatic event, right? So, and I don't know, Jackie, if you want to talk about some of the things that you still deal with based on your injury?
Yeah, so they call it the silent something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but anyway,
close enough.
Well, yeah, close enough. So like, yeah, I mean, like I like at the beginning, right? I was slow. My thought process was slow, so it took me a little bit longer to think about something before I did it, and that not so much at work, but because I was still in school at that time, but so it would just take me a longer time to do stuff, and even today, you know. And where I work is really great with that, but what they do is they have really accommodated me with, they understand it may take me longer to do a task that they may do, but they may do it better, or not better, but faster, right?
Right.
So I know that has really, that's something I've noticed is that, and that's something that's always going to be not a problem, but that's always something that's going to happen is I'm going to take longer to do something rather than someone who didn't suffer a traumatic brain injury, which is normal. But that's what happens. I wouldn't say regularly, but that's something I deal with.
There's moments where you recognize
there's moments where I recognize it. And then like my thought process is getting a lot better because, I'm focusing on my health and all that stuff. But my thought process is, at the beginning, it took me a long time to really think I'd say something, but then I'd be like, oh, I wish I didn't say that. I wish I said that a better way, right? So that is definitely something that I've gotten better. And with time, these things have gotten better. But I would say that, sometimes I have to watch where I'm walking because I might walk into a door, right? Like a door frame. I should say not a door, because that's straight on, but like a door frame. Like I'll hit the frame, like, okay, that was there. And but so there's some things that happen that I do see, and like at work, I have to always make sure I know where the steps are, and stuff like that. But that's more of just me personally, in going through the traumatic brain injury that I had. But I think that in general, no, it's not. There aren't that many things that I suffer with.
Right.
So, yeah, I would say that other than the little things that I mentioned, there's really none.
When to you, like someone might notice, oh, well, Jackie's doing that a little differently, but like you're now probably at the point where that's just how you're doing it. So like you don't notice like, oh, it's just how I do it now. Like, cause your brain's now compensated for whatever it needed to do to relearn. Mm-hmm. And for you, that's just normal. Like, fortunately, like you said, you're at a workplace that is very understanding and accommodating, which is awesome. And you're just doing it the way you can do it now, though.
Yeah, and it's not to say that traumatic brain injuries aren't high-performing individuals, because they are. Yeah. They just might do tasks a little differently than they did before.
You could just say, I'm just being more thorough.
Yeah, like, exactly. Yeah. Well, and I think, I think what some people don't realize is Jackie had really severe vision issues.
Okay.
Had to have horizontal and vertical prism.
That was changed like pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which we didn't know how bad it was at the beginning until we had a neurological exam when we were at McGee, and it was like, whew, like, how is this guy, how is he even seeing? Yeah. Like, it's no wonder he can't like have balance because of that. So. And
that probably makes a difference right away. But like,
oh yeah.
And it's a lot of, and even now there still might be something that you don't realize that you need to continue working on, but you'll figure, like, you probably still find things you're like, okay,
yeah,
I got to go about that a little bit different.
Yeah.
And it just, as you do it, you're getting used to kind of taking inventory of what you need to do to get things done. And there's probably always going to be things that you're going to encounter that you're like, I need to think about how I'm going to do this now.
Yeah. And that's another therapy, which I didn't even mention, was vision therapy. I mean, Jackie went to, how many years of vision therapy of just, and the doc was great because he didn't put really strong. At that point, Jackie wasn't driving again yet. So he didn't put massively strong prescriptions in because he wanted his eyes to be able to heal on their own going through these therapies.
Yeah. You're kind of he's like forcing them to forcing them to get better, not aiding it with a better or higher prescription.
Yeah, and when you think about it, our eyes have muscles behind them. Mm-hmm. So if you work the muscles, they'll get stronger and better. You know,
it's just
like other muscles in the body.
If you change a prescription, your eyes take a couple weeks to adjust. Yeah. Same deal. Like, you need to force your eyes to work, then they do get better.
Yeah. And what Jackie was saying about the silent, it's not condition, I can't remember the term, but that's frustrating for traumatic brain injury survivors because you might go up to survivor and they're still suffering with memory loss. They're still suffering with just taking long processing speed. But people expect them to be functioning like someone who didn't have a traumatic brain injury because they don't look like there's anything that happened to them.
Until you get to know that person too.
Right.
Like, we know you and we've, once we learn about your story, we know what to expect out of you. So not in a bad way. I just mean we know what's happening. But if someone off the street or someone you've just met meets you, it's a different interaction because you don't know you can't control that person. So you don't know what they're going to think. Right. And B, they might be like, what is going on? Like, I just need this to get done. So that's probably going to be something that, you're always going to have to encounter. And, you're equipping yourself with the tools to deal with that interaction too. So
and Jackie has a card that he has in his wallet, and now it's really not a concern now, but like at the beginning, tandem walking is difficult, right? So think about if you're driving and you get pulled over and you're a traumatic brain injury survivor. Oh, yeah. You can drive perfectly. You're very safe. You're not endangering anybody else. But if they get you out of the car and they want you to tandem walk, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this guy's been drinking too much. No, it's just because it's a result of a traumatic brain injury.
I wouldn't have ever thought of that. I mean, it's just a lot of things like that where you just don't realize.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one last question. What would be like one parting thing for anyone that you would explain to somebody who hasn't interacted with someone or hasn't had a family member or a friend so this is for both of you. We'll start with Jackie though. What's just a piece of advice for someone who hasn't gone through a TBI and TBI recovery to just kind of like, hey, here's some insight and like, here's what's going on. Here's how you can support someone that you meet or is going through a TBI recovery process. Like, what's just a piece of advice you can give to someone either unaware of it or just is interacting with someone or has met someone that has a TBI?
Yeah. I would say definitely be patient.
Okay.
Because as I, explained with my, letting go, right? I couldn't do that. So like, I had to be patient with myself, and that's something that took a lot of time, to be able to do. But I would say be patient, and don't rush them to any conclusions or anything like that, because they will come to a conclusion whether it's in the time that you want them to or not. So that's be patient. I would say be aware of everything that's going on. So like going through my injury, I have become very keen, and I don't know if this is just me or not, but I've been very keen of my environment. And I think that's crucial for everyone, but especially traumatic brain injury survivors, because if you have someone who bumps into you, I mean, this is like if you're in a busy city or whatever, but if someone bumps into you and you get knocked off balance, you need to make sure that you can catch yourself before you fall down and hit your head or whatnot, right? And don't want to progress or regress, right? After that, you don't want to regress to where you may have been before that,
right?
Or even worse. So, be aware spatially, be aware of your surroundings, and be patient. I know I've said that a lot, but be patient. And
it's kind of, you probably, like, it's like meeting an employer or getting a new job. Like, you kind of have to learn, you have to kind of tell them, like, hey, here's what you need to expect of me. So like if I was your employer, I'd be like, all right, we kind of need to relearn what we're doing here. Not to necessarily accommodate you, but to like, this is what we need to do to make sure you're supported too. Like it's kind of both ways.
Yeah. And I would, and definitely work, if you are, if you're the person who suffered a traumatic brain injury, be open. I mean, I'm like an open book, so I don't know if everyone's like an open book, right? But definitely be open with certain things, especially the important things. On like if you can't do something, say you're working on it, right? Because eventually you will learn how to do it. It's just you got to give yourself time to do that and be able to learn how to do that again or relearn how to do that. So
yeah. I think for me, what we learned so many things. I think at the beginning, when you see your loved one laying there and you're like, I don't know how they're ever going to get back, like never give up hope, realize it's going to take time. It's going to take probably years depending on the severity, but never, ever give up hope. Keep looking for different therapies. Keep reaching out to different things. Eat healthy. There's so many things we can do. I'm like, for heaven's sakes, if you have children, please put helmets on them. I mean, a traumatic brain injury can happen in a second and will change your life. So wear your seatbelt, wear helmets. But for those that have a traumatic brain injury, staying positive, bringing humor in when you can, celebrating the really small wins. I remember when Jackie was home and we had a friend come visit and we were so excited. We wanted to show them, like Jackie with the walker, we were kind of with him, but he actually got over to the kitchen sink and he actually brushed his teeth. And that, to us, talk about taking everything we do every day for granted. I mean, we were just celebrating like crazy. Just the little things. Like all along the traumatic brain injury journey, any little thing that happens. When Jackie could do a thumbs up, I mean, wasn't talking at all. When he went, give us a thumbs up, and he went, I mean, that was it. Like we were partying. Like, so you have to celebrate all the small wins, advocate for yourself, find all different therapies, be patient, and just always be positive in front of the patient. Never talk in front of the patient negatively at all. If you need to vent, which is absolutely normal, go out of the room and do it out there. Whenever you're in front of them, always be positive. Yeah.
It's kind of like you kind of have to check you have to check yourself. Like, okay, this isn't gonna help anything if I take out my frustrations or I show a negative emotion or whatever. It's not a positive interaction right now, so I just got to check it. Like we got to leave it at the door and we're moving forward. Like it's probably a lot of that, which is like gut checks. Like, all right, gotta knock it off. It isn't going to move anything. Probably for both of you. Like, it's time to put our big boy pants on or big girl pants on and get through this. And
I think another thing, which is hard to do, but Jim was really good at this, and then we helped each other out, is never go down the route of why. And I'm sure, Jackie, you had to go that route when you were cognitively coming back into it.
Probably not at first.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, there's nothing positive that comes out of that. Like
Yeah.
it's wasted energy because
like,
you can't change it.
Somewhere deep in your brain, and it's probably better if we had Jim come on, but like,
Yeah, I know.
Somewhere in your brain, it's like, it still goes there. Like
yeah, absolutely.
But you gotta learn to cut it. Like,
yes.
stop. You have to, and there's probably a way, there's a pattern interrupt that you probably learned where you're like, nope, gotta stop that. And you gotta change, you gotta correct course right away.
Yeah.
But doing that, like, it's like living in the past. Like, oh, if I could go back and change, like, but you can't. So you're wasting your energy.
Yeah. My pattern interrupt was Jim.
Okay.
And then I was it for Jim.
He's like,
once I kind of really,
stop. No.
Yeah. No. Like, right.
Yeah.
We gotta, yesterday's over, right? We gotta focus on today. And
that's hard too. I don't need to go back into a whole new thing, but like, you know, especially with a child, it's like, I don't know how to word this. So like, if I don't say this the right way, I don't mean anything by it, but like, you have this vision and plan of like, here's what's going to happen. We're going to go to college and this and this and this. And like, it just breaks and it stops. And same with you, like you have all these, you have a vision and it stops and you can't get caught up in like, well, this is what we had planned. No, like you got to stop. Doesn't matter because it's gone.
Yeah.
And it's not that it can't ever be good again, because obviously everything is great. You know, you're back, you're working now, you're independent. We were just joking about you're washing your own clothes now.
Living in an apartment.
That might have taken a while regardless, because, you know, we're guys and we can be messy. Right. But either way, you do have to learn to like stop. It doesn't matter what that was, because now we're on this path.
Yeah. So. Well, and what do we call you, Jackie?
Oh, this is Jackie version 2.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Jackie version 2.0, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, maybe that path that he wanted isn't the path where he landed, but it's ultimately the best path for him.
Because, and it didn't matter because it didn't that's not where we are today. So, yeah.
And I do want to just add something quick. So also never give up.
Okay.
Right. I know I've said be patient. You do have to be patient, but also, never give up. I know through my experience, I tried to do things, it didn't work, then I would try a different way. So, definitely don't give up on yourself, but also, if you're trying to do something the way you used to do it, or you don't remember how you used to do it, just try and figure out the way that works best for you, going forward. So never give up. Always, be resilient, always be resilient in the way that, kind of be like, what's that saying? But anyway,
it's almost like where there's a will, there's a way.
Right.
Like you're going to figure it out. You might run into some walls, but just keep finding a way.
Yeah. Kind of be like that squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And always, and that's more of like a conversation thing. But like always work at, whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
But always, always stay positive. Mm-hmm. I think that was important for me. Always stay positive and find the silver lining wherever you can.
You bring that up because the Silver Linings Playbook, because it's a Philadelphia Eagles movie? Is that no?
Yeah, no. Last Philly reference. We'll let that slide. Okay. No, but I mean, thanks for coming on and sharing it. Lithgow Foundation, we'll put the website, everything will be in the footer, links to the websites, links to all your socials so people can follow you and sign up, check out the golf event and the 5K.
Yeah.
So
thanks so much for having us.
On.
Yeah, thank you.
I wish we had more time, because I feel like we're just glancing a lot of the stuff. Like we could go deeper into a lot of it, but I do like you coming on and kind of just showing your side of the story and how you're helping people now. So I truly appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.